As you might know if you follow me on Instagram, I spent the past 6 months working in an agency for city planning in Germany. And today I wanted to do a little debriefing of everything that I learned during this experience. This was my first professional experience, and I want to share more about what I learned about the professional world, the architecture world, and some overall thoughts and lessons that I learned during the journey. So these are 6 things that I learned during my internship in Germany in city planning. First point is about language. Since I was working in Germany and German is not my first language, I'm French. I speak French and English fluently, but my German was not as comfortable as some other languages. And I would say that the first lesson I learned is even though you speak the language, there is always a language barrier, and every language has its own nuances. This means that when I was working, I really felt that it was harder because of very specific terms that I didn't know that were special for the field which I was studying in, but also the structure and the grammar was more complex than when you just speak with your friends. I found it harder to be comfortable and be sure that, for example, I understood the orders of the things that I had to do right, but also just integrating because you don't have the same language and you don't have the same culture. And even though everyone was super welcoming, I could still feel a bit different. But what really struck me the most, it was that I was kind of useless for some basic tasks. For example, since we had to write some text, I could not write a text in German. It's just too hard. It doesn't work. Even if I can write pretty well and I wouldn't make too many mistakes, it just doesn't sound right for a native, and especially if you want to talk about more complex stuff, it's really hard. The same way I was making social media for the company and I had to write text in German, but just for stories which were like a little bit more casual. And I don't know how to write casual German. It's the nuances of the language that just made it so much harder, especially when I had to write stuff. I was also fully unable, for example, to just read a text before sending it to a client to make sure that there's no mistakes, because I wouldn't see the mistakes. And it's just basic tasks that anyone from Germany, even without a diploma, most of them would be able to do, but I was just not able at all. Same for writing emails, professional emails. That was such a struggle, and I really thank my friend ChatGPT for correcting everything that I made. I also found it harder because of that kind of language barrier to give feedback, because it was harder to express some very deeper feelings. I also learned about the importance of communication. It was my first time working in an actual company, and it was not a very big company. And I was also working for the communication. And this really enabled me to understand how communication is important for any business, for it to exist for their potential clients, but also potential partners. And I think that it's especially the case in creative fields where you really have to communicate to show that you're here and to be able to find clients. And you really have to show what you do and create a whole brand and identity about what you do and who you are, so that people know you, know your skills, know what you can do, and create an entire brand identity so that you exist for potential clients. They know that you exist and they might reach out to you if they want to. And also keeping in mind that the communication has to be part of the big picture and keep intention for everything that is being communicated. I also learned the importance of visual communication. Since I did not have the same language, I really focused on having visuals that are really understandable even if the person doesn't speak the language. I think sometimes we just rely too much on text, but people sometimes just don't want to read or kind of just read through the lines, and what will strike them the most is the visuals. So I really focused on nonverbal communication, adding some things to make people able to understand even without really reading it, being able to catch the essence of the meaning, the essence of the business and of the propositions, while doing this only with visuals. It's just another part of the language, the way that we speak together, and we use most of our body language and voice tone to transmit the emotions. It's kind of the same when you're looking at something. It's not only the text, it's also the way that it's written, and it's also in what it is showcased. And I think I really caught the importance of that during the internship. I also learned about the importance of network. I was never really part of the networking people, but I think I really understood that in professional areas it's so important. I really have a tendency to try to do things on my own and don't really want to ask other people or rely on other people, but I really understood that it's not only about asking people to do things for you or being really connected, but it's more of like existing in the landscape of the others. It's about taking news of people, it's about going to the events that you have to do, and it's about keeping and maintaining some relationships, even if they're strictly professional or pretty formal, but having the people that you know that they're accessible, that they're open to you, and you still have a contact with them. It might become something more, it might not, but you keep the doors open. And I think I more have a tendency to shut the doors down when I think I don't need them. But I've seen that actually keeping your doors open, and especially in professional relationships, that is so important. In network, you have to maintain it. You have to talk to people and keep talking to them, ask for news, send them wishes, and just overall keep a contact, even if it's not like your besties, but staying alive in people's minds, that they know that you exist, that they know that you're active. And this way you can get inspired, but you can also get supported. You might even get some help, but all of this is about human relationships. Another lesson that I learned, this one is more for myself, is that work might not pay off, but the mass of work eventually will. And I think that in this internship, it was the first time ever in my life that I had to work like 7 hours a day, every day on a task. And I could really see how in a few weeks you could have such a strong base, such a developed work. And yeah, even if everything doesn't work out, the mass of work eventually will pay off, and you will be able to do something. If you work a lot on it and consistently, then it will work. If you work just one day, like super intense, yes, it might not pay off, but the mass of it, doing it consistently over a long period of time, you may accomplish really, really big things. When I saw what I did at the end of my internship, I was struck with how little it felt. But then when you see it after 6 months, you're like, wow, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of things that have been done. And I think I never really saw it in the same way before. So this got me more confident in my ability to pursue harder things, but also like more complex and longer tasks, like this YouTube project, for example, where you know that you will have to put a consistent amount of effort, and eventually one day it will pay off. It will have to in some way or another. So that's it. That's my little debriefing of everything that I learned during my internship. Of course, I learned many more things, but those are the main points that kind of struck my mind and I really understood during this internship. So if this video interested you and you have more questions, you can also put a comment down below. I hope you liked this video, and I'll see you again in the next one. Bye!